Maya Chen was the first human to work at the Korath Learning Center on Station Valora 7. The Korath were massive beings. They stood nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray fur covering their bodies. Their hands were the size of dinner plates, and their desks matched their enormous size. When Maya walked into her new workplace on that first morning, she felt like a child entering a world built for giants. The administrator who hired her was named Elder Grenick. He had been kind during the interview process. He believed in the galactic initiative to bring different species together, but not everyone shared his open mind. When Maya arrived with her small human-sized desk, the whispers started immediately. The desk was standard issue for humans. It was made of lightweight composite material with a smooth white surface. It had 2 small drawers and a comfortable height for someone of Maya's size. The delivery workers placed it in the corner of the large communal workspace. It looked like a child's toy next to the massive Korath furniture surrounding it. "Look at that," said Trainer Vosk, a senior instructor with dark patches of fur around his eyes. "They sent us a creature with furniture for ants." His companion, Trainer Moloch, laughed deeply. The sound rumbled like distant thunder. "How can anyone accomplish real work at something so small? My food tray is larger than her entire workspace." Maya heard them. She pretended not to. She simply unpacked her materials and began organizing her space. She had brought things from Earth. There were small picture frames with photos of her family. There was a tiny plant in a blue pot. There were colorful pens and notebooks and a tablet loaded with educational programs she had designed herself. The teasing continued for weeks. Every morning, someone made a comment about her ridiculous little desk. Some of the Korath would walk past and deliberately bump it with their massive legs. They would apologize without meaning it. They would ask if she needed a booster seat. They would wonder aloud if her species ever grew to proper sizes. Maya endured it all with quiet dignity. She focused on her job. The Learning Center was a place where young Korath cubs came to receive their early education. Maya had been hired because of a special program meant to expose the cubs to different galactic cultures. Her role was to teach them about Earth, about human history and art and science. Nobody expected much from her. Most of the senior trainers saw her position as a meaningless gesture to satisfy some political requirement. The cubs themselves were another matter entirely. They were smaller than adult Korath, of course, but still twice Maya's height. They had soft fur and large, curious eyes. They moved with the clumsy energy of all young creatures. On her first day of teaching, they stared at her with a mixture of confusion and fascination. "You are so small," said one cub named Kira. She was not being cruel. She was simply stating a fact with the honesty that only children possess. "I am," Maya agreed with a smile. "But that does not mean I am weak or useless. On my planet, we say that good things come in small packages." The cubs did not understand the expression, but they liked her voice. It was softer than the deep rumbles of their own kind. It had a musical quality that they found pleasant. Maya began her lessons. She taught them about Earth. She showed them images of blue oceans and green forests and tall mountains covered in white snow. The cubs had never seen such things. Their own home world was a place of vast plains and rocky terrain. The idea of water covering most of a planet amazed them. She taught them about human music. She played recordings of orchestras and folk songs and modern melodies. The cubs swayed and hummed along. Some of them tried to copy the sounds with their own deep voices, creating strange but wonderful harmonies. She taught them about human art. She brought supplies and showed them how to draw and paint. The cubs had never used such small tools before. Their massive fingers struggled with the delicate brushes. Maya showed them how to hold the instruments gently. She guided their hands with patience. When they made mistakes, she encouraged them to try again. Slowly, something began to change. The cubs started visiting Maya's tiny desk during their free time. At first, it was just Kira. She would come over and watch Maya work. She would ask questions about the small plant and the picture frames and the colorful objects scattered across the surface. Maya answered every question with warmth and detail. Then more cubs came. They gathered around the small desk like giants surrounding a precious treasure. They sat on the floor to bring themselves closer to Maya's level. They asked her to tell them stories about Earth. They asked her to teach them human words. They asked her to show them how to fold paper into tiny shapes. Maya taught them origami. The cubs were terrible at it at first. Their large fingers could not make the precise folds, but they kept trying. Maya made the folding steps larger for them. She created special, oversized paper. She modified the art form to fit their abilities. Soon, clumsy paper birds and flowers began appearing throughout the learning center. The senior trainers watched this with growing discomfort. Trainer Vosk noticed that the cubs were spending more time at the tiny human desk than at his own impressive station. Trainer Molek saw the children laughing and smiling in ways they never did during his lessons. One afternoon, Vosk approached Maya's desk while a group of cubs were gathered around it. He towered over everyone, his shadow falling across the small workspace. "What is this nonsense?" he demanded. "These cubs should be studying proper subjects, not playing with paper and listening to strange noises." The cubs fell silent. They looked up at Vosk with wide eyes. Fear began creeping into their expressions. But then something unexpected happened. Kira stood up. She was young, but she had her mother's stubborn nature. She held up a paper crane she had made. It was imperfect. The wings were uneven, but she had made it herself. "Teacher Maya showed us how to create," Kira said. Her voice was small but firm. "She teaches us things we never knew before. She makes us feel smart and capable." Another cub stood up, then another. Soon all of them were on their feet, surrounding Maya's tiny desk like protective walls. "She listens to us," said one cub. "She never makes fun of us when we fail," said another. "Her desk is small, but she gives us more than anyone," Kira finished. Vosk stood frozen. He had no response. The cubs were defending the tiny human with a passion he had never inspired in any of his students. He looked at Maya. She sat calmly at her small desk, surrounded by young Korath who adored her. Her eyes held no anger or triumph. They held only kindness. Elder Greenock had been watching from across the room. He stepped forward now, his ancient fur gray with age and wisdom. "It seems," he said slowly, "that the size of a desk matters far less than the size of a heart." Vosk lowered his head. The words struck him deeply. He had spent years building his reputation on grand displays and impressive furniture. He had measured worth by physical standards. But this small human had shown him something important. Connection was not about size. Teaching was not about power. Leadership was not about domination. From that day forward, the teasing stopped. The other trainers began watching Maya with new eyes. Some of them started asking her for advice. They wanted to know how she connected with the cubs so effectively. Maya shared her methods freely. She believed that knowledge should never be hoarded. Her tiny desk became famous throughout Station Valora 7. Visitors from other species would come to see it. They had heard stories about the human who taught giants from a workspace no bigger than a storage box. They saw the paper creations decorating the walls. They heard the cubs singing human songs in their deep voices. They witnessed something rare and beautiful. Maya never asked for a bigger desk. She did not need one. Her small space had become the heart of the learning center. Cubs would fight for the chance to sit near it. They would bring her gifts of rocks and shiny objects they had found. They would tell her about their dreams and fears and hopes. Years passed. Kira grew up and became a trainer herself. She kept a small human-sized table in her own classroom. It was a symbol of what she had learned. Size did not determine value. Kindness was stronger than mockery. The greatest teachers were those who made their students feel seen and heard. Maya eventually returned to Earth. She was old by then, her hair gray and her movements slow. But the Korath never forgot her. They built a statue in her honor at the Learning Center. It showed a small human sitting at a tiny desk, surrounded by towering cubs looking down at her with love and respect. The inscription at the base was simple. It read, "She taught us that true strength has no measure." And for generations to come, young Korath would gather around that statue and hear the story of the human with the tiny desk. They would learn that the galaxy was vast and full of different beings. They would understand that greatness came in all sizes. Most importantly, they would know that the smallest among them could change the world. Maya Chen had proven what humans had always known, but rarely said aloud. It was not the size of the body or the desk or the voice that mattered. It was the willingness to give, to teach, to love without condition. In a universe of giants, one small human had made the biggest difference of all, and that was a legacy no amount of teasing could ever diminish.